No, I got that.
Yep.
Mr. Grillo, I had a question for you as well, but I will put that off into the written since I'm out of time. But I do think that some of the stuff like the MAVEN mission out of the University of Colorado Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics, collecting essential data about atmosphere on Mars and really getting into that deep research. There are a lot of things that we need to discuss about that. I'll put that off till into the written.
Let me just say, Senator Redwire is happy to be in Longmont and Littleton, Colorado.
Thank you.
Well, it's my turn, and I actually wanted to be an astronaut as a kid. Was my dream. Went to the Naval Academy, which has produced more astronauts than anyone else. Unfortunately, I wasn't smart enough, so I became a senator instead, which I fit in perfectly now here. But Mr. Bryan said, you made a comment earlier, we didn't know in the 1960s. We didn't know a lot of what we face as far as just the physics, the science of the universe, literally, that we were operating in. And, it was just about 8 years from the time the first flight from Alan Shepard to when Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon. And in 8 years, we went from 0 space flight capability to literally sending humans to another planetary body and bringing them back safely, which, as you remember, was Kennedy's initial writ when he laid out that vision. And right now, that this smartphone I carry and you all, I'm sure, have in your pocket has 10,000 times the computing power of what the Apollo 5 rocket had on board as far as its guidance systems and ability to determine its navigation routes. We have computing capabilities and knowledge of the cosmos that far outweigh anything we thought we even could ever know in the 1960s. And yet, we look at what our capabilities are now, and other than some bright spots like the James Webb Telescope and others, for the most part, we are far less capable at star voyaging today as a nation than we were 50 years ago. And for a decade, we were paying the Russians taxi fare to send our own astronauts into space. I mean, if you went back and told Reagan and Kennedy that, hey, in 50 years, we're going to be paying the Soviet Union $60 million a seat to take American astronauts to outer space, they'd laugh in your face. There's no way they'd believe you. And as a lifelong space enthusiast and someone who truly believes that not just our national security, but our economic security, our fundamental stability as a nation does depend on our ability to continue to lead in space, I'm very, very concerned about what the next decade looks like. And I'm very concerned that the bureaucracy of NASA, of which I love NASA, I'm a supporter, but we have to be honest with ourselves, is the bureaucracy of NASA positioned to give us space dominance in the 21st century? Just like we're seeing in the DoD right now. Our legacy industrial age acquisition infrastructure is failing to keep pace with China. They build chips 200 times faster than we do. The Chinese are putting more satellites into space every day than we are, every month. We're looking at the ability for us to innovate, iterate, and deploy technologies that we're just not keeping up with the rest of the world. So as we look at systems like SLS, which I agree we need, we look at Orion, we look at the Space Liner, and we say to ourselves, is our acquisition, engineering, and development processes within NASA up to the task? Meanwhile, we look across the street at SpaceX, and yes, NASA's involved in that, but that's a private enterprise that is frankly innovating at astounding rates. Starship's flight last week was a wonder to watch and incredible to see what's happening there. So assuming we all agree, which it sounds like we do, that we want America to lead the next space race, is NASA, as is currently configured, obviously it doesn't have a leader right now, hopefully soon it does, but is NASA, as is currently configured, ready to lead that race, or do we have to rethink how America structures our space program?
So I would say, first of all, you covered a lot, and I think I'm in agreement with primarily everything you said. I think when you think about what has hindered us from going forward, you go back to George Herbert Walker Bush. We had the Space Exploration Initiative, which was a plan to go back to the moon and onto Mars. And then the next administration came in and canceled it. And then we had George Herbert Walker Bush was SEI, and then George W. Bush was the Vision for Space Exploration, which is a plan to go back to the moon and then on to Mars. The new administration came in and canceled it. And then President Trump comes in and says, we're going to go to the moon and on to Mars. And for the first time, the program sustained. As I said earlier in the hearing, the architecture is challenged significantly in the current format. That architecture is extraordinarily complex. It, quite frankly, doesn't make a lot of sense if you're trying to go first to the moon, this time to beat China. It does not make sense to do that. But the question is then what do we do? And I think one thing we can do is we can say, look, we're not going just to put flags and footprints on the moon as we did back in 1969 through 1972. What we're doing now is we're going to go forward to the moon. Mike Gold, I think, correctly talked about the gateway and how that could be basically our moon base around the moon. And then we can have commercial and international partners join that moon base to be able to have access anywhere on the surface of the moon at any time we want. We can go to the North Pole, we can go to the South Pole, we can go to the equatorial regions. Wherever the most valuable spots on the moon are that we need to go, we can go. But we're building infrastructure and we're allowing private capital to go forward and build all of the things that we can do on the surface. And that means extract resources, whether it's platinum group metals or other precious materials, whether it's helium-3 or water ice or other capabilities. I think that is transformational, and it also includes a lot more private companies. It includes a lot more international partners, and it's an open architecture system where we can actually have a sustainable path that goes forward regardless of administration. So getting cast to and fro from one administration to the next has been very damaging over time. And that's the challenge with NASA. What we do is multi-decadal in nature, and sometimes it's multi-generational, and you can't just have it go back and forth all the time.
Well, I'd be curious, especially your opinion generally, the history of our space program, that there was periods of time where there was great tension between the Air Force and NASA as a push and pull between, is it a military primacy or is it civilian? And of course, we've always maintained that space should not be militarized, but that's a belief we hold. Other nations don't necessarily hold that outlook. How do you see the Space Force now weaving with NASA going forward to energize our ability to have a significant defense presence in space?
Well, I'd point out our adversaries have already militarized space and developed space weapons. I'd also point out that sometimes is a logical